Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. It's good to be back. I was away in the UK for a few days, and most enjoyable was that visit as well. Look forward to hosting Erik Solheim on the 27th at the Intercontinental at Mindspeak. Erik is the head of UNEP, and I've been following him for a while on Twitter, so I'm looking forward to what he's going to say. Mindspeak is free to attend. We serve breakfast from 9 and we start at 10. That's the Intercontinental here in Nairobi. Erik Solheim, UNEP Executive Director. His biography is extremely interesting. Take a look at the link. He's been a peacemaker, an environmentalist, and obviously has been at a number of key moments in the world's historical, iconic moments. He was in South Sudan at the time of independence. He was a negotiator between the Tamils and the government, and of course he has a passion for the environment. Macro thoughts in the business, a subtle but crucial informational advantage was called edge. That's a fact, but the point I would like to stress is you can have that edge, but the devil is in the detail of the execution. Barclays issued their global economic outlook, which sadly I missed earlier this week. Global growth of 3.9% in 2017, fastest since 2011. Growth looks to be largely synchronized, suggesting a resilient recovery, and lots of detail about Kenya as well in that report. That link is on Rich Wrap-Ups. Home thoughts, I return to Roberto Bolaño, who wrote a book called 2666. The sky at sunset looked like a carnivorous flower. The truth is, we never stop being children, terrible children, covered in sores and knotty veins and tumors and age spots, but ultimately children. In other words, we never stop clinging to life because we are life. Still, American television is full of smiles and more perfect looking teeth. Do these people want us to trust them? No. Do they want us to think they're good people? No again. The truth is, they don't want anything from us. They just want to show us their teeth, their smiles, and admiration is all they want in return. Admiration. They want us to look at them, that's all. Their perfect teeth, their perfect bodies, their perfect manners, as if they were constantly breaking away from the sun, and they were little pieces of fire, little pieces of blazing hell here on this planet, simply to be worshipped. And finally, only in chaos are we conceivable. That's Roberto Bolaño. Political reflections. Iran's supreme leader accuses Saudi Arabia of committing treason against Muslims with their US alliance. Addressing parliamentary representatives from Islamic countries gathered in Tehran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said the US decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital was a big mistake and doomed to failure. Regional governments that are cooperating with the United States and the Zionist regime to fight against Muslims are certainly committing treason. This is what Saudi Arabia is doing, he said. In November last year, I wrote a piece called The Capture of a 32-year-old wannabe king. And in that article I said, and what is also clear is that Bibi Netanyahu, who was seen visiting the Taj Mahal yesterday, MBZ of Abu Dhabi, Jared Kushner, and a Trump carte blanche have all leveraged this existential paranoia to effect not a state capture but a kingdom capture. Somalia's Al-Shabaab denounces an ex-spokesman as an apostate who could be killed. And it's the photograph that caught my attention. But the point is, apostasy and the accusation thereof is really a political thing. A truly inspirational woman. I spent some wonderful time with Nice when I was invited to join her at AMREF Worldwide, the alternate rite of passage ceremony in Lenkisem in Kenya. It's a happy photograph. Reports suggest Steve Bannon is willing to cooperate with Robert Mueller. Jim Clancy reports Trump and the porn star update. Adult film star reportedly spoke to journalists in 2016 about Trump's settlement, fearing he wouldn't pay up. Sums it up. Then I thought to myself, I wonder if Donald Trump has watched Boogie Nights, which is a really quite extraordinary film, notwithstanding the subject matter. Boogie Nights is the opening sequence. It's become very famous because it's a Steadicam sequence. The operator was Andy Shuttleworth, P.T. Anderson directed the movie, and then of course another little clip, Boogie Nights pool scene, which is just hilarious. At this point, it's not clear what constitutes corruption, what the penalties are for corruption, what evidence there is, and what constitutes evidence, said James Dorsey, a Middle East specialist in Singapore's Nanyang Technological University. What one sees as fly-by-night arrests on unknown grounds, during which pressure is increased until the detainee accedes to financial and restrictive terms dictated to him. Robert Fisk, in an interesting article, says the Middle East, as we all know, is a place of jinns, ghosts, crusaders, Saracens, apocalypses, 12 imams, Christ figures, and bearded men in caves. And he also adds, for good measure, there really is no point anymore in talking about Donald Trump or US foreign policy. They do not exist. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 4 times has been rejected around the 123 area, last trading 121.91. Dollar index firming up 19.89. Japanese yen 111.40, that softened up. Swiss franc 0.9648. The pound 138.14. The Australian dollar crossed 80 but is back at 0.7961. India rupee 63.905. South Korean won 1068.81. The Brazilian real 322.38. Egyptian pound 17.7205. And the rand is at 12.31.34. Bank of Canada raised rates, but caution stimulus is still needed. Dollar index is last at 90.89. It's attempting to push back. Let's see how things unfold. Euro dollar 121.86, rejected, as I said, that area just around 123 on several occasions. Bitcoin, my God, that's been all over the place. Let me start by saying on the 2nd of January, I said I'm no longer bullish Bitcoin, which I'm not. In fact, I'm bearish. Now it dipped below 10,000 yesterday, but we've come back to 11,149. So below 10, now back above it, and above 11,000, sank below 10,000. At that point, the month-long reversal was 50%. Dropped to 9,610. Its first foray below 10,000 since December the 1st. The sell-off this week brings more trauma to a digital coin market that has lost more than $300 billion in value since January the 13th. Bitcoin, more than anything we can find in the history books, is the very essence of a bubble. This is Jeremy Grantham, which which was something I was saying as well in my article, the crypto avocado millennial economy, when I said the multiplier we witnessed is simply unprecedented, and that's confirmed by the diagram that was posted in that article. Take you back to November 2017, Bitcoin, wow, what a ride. As T.S. Eliot said in The Hollow Men, between the idea and the reality, between the notion and the act, between the shadow and the act falls the shadow, for thine is the kingdom. One of the few men to get out in time before the Wall Street crash of 1929 did so, legend has it, because he was offered a stock tip by the boy who shined his shoes. He immediately sold all his holdings. If the mania for gambling on the stock market had reached down to the children on the streets, the bubble must have been due to pop at any moment. The corresponding moment from the cryptocurrency bubble will only be discernible in retrospect. But we have some pretty strong candidates already. The endorsement of one project by the reality TV star Paris Hilton has already happened. There are many cryptocurrency schemes which are sold on the same grounds as the greatest South Sea bubble prospectus, for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage, but nobody to know what it is. My investment thesis at the start of 2017 was that Bitcoin was going to get mainstreamed in 2017. And I said at the end of this year, it is mainstream beyond my wildest dreams. Therefore, I am now sidelined. And I was leaving the readers with the quote from Hunter S. Thompson: life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty, well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride. In the article on the 2nd of January, I said I prefer to look for opportunities below the big headliner tech stocks. I like Twitter at $24 and 10 cents through Naspers. Commodity markets gold lost at 1326.05, but what a firm rally we've seen from areas around 1240. Oil, I'm a bit sidelined because, as I said on the 2nd of January, I was looking for WTI to hit $65. And I said I would bag my gain. We hit 65 momentarily. We're back at around $64.25. I like this photograph of the Bay of Bengal from Peter Frank in Pan, sun setting over the Bay of Bengal. Came across an interesting article written by somebody called Dugin, who's obviously somehow associated with the Kremlin. And he's talking about Africa results of 2017 and prognoses for 2018, Alexandr Dugin. The fact is that the Chinese have shown that they can also organize color revolutions, he says. This is very important and will have meaning in 2018. He was referring to Zimbabwe. In 2017, the EU, US, China, India, and Japan continued their battle for influence in Africa. The US mainly uses military mechanisms. In 2008, the US Armed Forces created an African command. It is formally responsible for counter-terrorist operations and the training of African soldiers. According to data acquired by the American journalist Tom Engelhardt, in 2015, the US had base points in 24 African countries. In 2017, Japan, India, China, which normally depend on investment mechanisms, did not hold any large summits with the participation of African countries, if we do not count invitations for Kenya and Egypt to the BRICS summit in the DRC. In November 2017, the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, Abidjan, a joint EU-African Union summit was held. Leaders of European countries promised to raise investment in Africa and also solve the problem of African slaves in Libya. Emmanuel Macron even proposed the creation of special police forces to evacuate the unfortunates, but there haven't been any concrete actions as of yet. He then adds, the Red Sea is one of the key places of the world's oceans. Those who control it in many ways control world communications. The Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb Gulf, the Horn of Somalia, very important places in Atlantis geopolitics. Talk about the Soviet Union. Nevertheless, in some form, the presence of the Russian fleet in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Gulf will become more stable and solid, be it in the form of a base in Sudan or in the use of UAE bases in Eritrea, Somalia, or Yemen. Addis Abeba's plans expose rivalry with Cairo for regional power. Egypt cannot live without the Nile. The world's longest river is a lifeline for hundreds of millions of people. It's also fast becoming a fault line, says Martina Stips in the Wall Street Journal. Lourenco proves he's no one's puppet in Angola. This is something that I've been saying. It's very noticeable shortly after becoming president of Angola in September. How Lourenco did something completely unexpected. He stopped at a red light. The incident prompted thousands of social media users to praise the 63-year-old former army general for abiding by the law. In October, Lourenco waited in line at a KFC restaurant to buy a burger. And then this month, photos surfaced of him and his wife Ana Diaz strolling on a beach in the capital, Luanda. Few predicted the sharp contrast in leadership style with his predecessor, José Eduardo dos Santos, who really left the pink presidential palace from where he ruled Africa's second biggest oil producer for almost 4 decades. When he did emerge, hundreds of soldiers swarmed the city centre to allow his convoy to move swiftly through the potholed streets, leaving traffic paralysed for hours. He's been a very positive surprise, Soren Kirk Jensen, an independent Angola expert. There's been a profound change of style from a completely closed style to a completely open one. More importantly, he's initiated much-needed economic reforms by addressing dysfunctionalities in the way the market works due to unnatural monopolies that happen to be controlled by certain families. The first high-profile official to be removed was Central Bank Governor Walter Felipe, a lawyer dos Santos appointed the previous year. Then came the bombshells. He fired both dos Santos' billionaire daughter Isabel as chairwoman of Orengo, and Jose Filomeno dos Santos, one of his sons, as head of Angola's $5 billion sovereign wealth fund. Lourenco also replaced the boards of several state-owned companies loyal to dos Santos and cancelled multi-million-dollar contracts for the management of Angola's public television channels and 2 other dos Santos children. The leadership change in Angola is radical, said Nuno Borges, who leads the country's car dealers association, etc. People are no longer scared to speak out about corruption. There's a lot more transparency indeed. He's really hit the ground running. They're also to issue a $2 billion Eurobond in 2018 to ease the debt burden. I said on the 2nd of January, I like what I'm seeing in Angola. But I said, I was keen on being long Angola at risk. The devil is in the detail of the execution, however, and I was talking about being long Angola Eurobonds. They're also adjusting the currency, which is now down almost 20% against the dollar this year to around 205. It's still a lot stronger than the black market rate of 450, but obviously they're trying to unify or narrow the two. And then just to give you an idea, the extra yield investors demand to hold Angolan debt over US bonds is 399 basis points compared to the 347 basis point average in sub-Saharan Africa. So I think it's good value. South African regulator pursues criminal complaints against SAP, KPMG and McKinsey. That was what I wrote about on the 25th of September last year when I was talking about reputational risk and a cautionary tale from South Africa. South African oil shares up 2.39% this year. The CEO of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan, said once in a while something doesn't turn out the way we want because that's what the definition of taking risk is. He was talking about Steinhoff, the accounting scandal where 4 of the US's biggest banks disclosed more than $1 billion of mark-to-market losses and charge-offs on margin loans and other debt tied to the embattled South African retail in the fourth quarter results. Citi led the pack with $370 million. My piece on the 11th of December was this man, Christo, Wiese, with a Midas touch. Dollar Rand last trading at 12.31.34. I'm still looking for 12. Nigerian all shares, the world's best this year, up 17.37%. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 10.3%. Zimbabwe's finance minister says bond notes stay for now. Each time Patrick Okello goes to tend his crops, he has to tell the soldiers or faces 50 lashes with a whip when he returns. Equatoria was once South Sudan's breadbasket, producing the corn, the sorghum, the vegetables that fed the nation, including the oil-rich north where famine hit last year. Since fighting spread to Equatoria in the mid-2016, output has collapsed, adding to what Oxfam says is the likelihood of the country's worst ever hunger this year. James Orengo, Jubilee is looking for dialogue as an endgame. NASA has a serious agenda on the table. He says every time I see James, I expect him to call for mass action on the streets. Safaricom, Kenya, Standard Chartered and Barclays were my choices for stocks this year at the Nairobi Stock Exchange.